Those barbarians want me dead.
Can't this car go any faster?
I lost her.
You lost Cleopatra in New York City? Babe Ruth, the greatest player baseball ever knew.
Maybe I'm finished.
Just keep him busy tonight. He's already inside.
Why would Lucky Luciano want to kidnap Babe Ruth?
Don't fuck there.
Hey, Mr. Ruth! You wasn't gonna leave without saying goodnight, was you?
Battle of the Network shows. Join Rick Brooks and Mike Kogel as they explore the TV of the 70s and 80s through hand-picked episodes of their favorite and not-so-favorite series.
Hey, welcome to another Battle of the Network shows. This is Mike, here with Rick as always, and today we're going to be talking about yet another NBC early 80s show. This one, the time-traveling drama, Voyagers. I should say, if you listen to our season premiere, the 8 is Enough episode, we kind of teased this because this stars Meeno Peluce, kid actor from that period who was in almost everything.
Yes, a little bit more mature Meeno Peluce.
That's
a more
right.
Seasoned actor at this point.
Yeah.
But still with that scampish charm.
That's right, and that mop of curly hair.
Indeed.
It also stars Jon-Erik Hexum, who died a couple years later in an on-set accident on another show. I don't know if we want to go into too much detail there, but...
No, I think, unfortunately, a lot of people would remember Jon-Erik Hexum today for two things. One would be this show, and the other would be the way he died.
Yeah.
The other show was Cover Up, which had barely started, I think, when that happened. And
yeah.
That show is only remembered pretty much for, that tragedy. But,
right.
Yeah, he was, in his mid-20s when that happened?
Yeah, mid or late 20s, yeah.
Yeah, so he was very young when this show was made. This was a couple of years before that, so
yeah.
The leading man, quite young.
Yep. Yeah, I think he only did like 4 projects. So, and it stars all of history.
Yes, the whole world and space and time is the setting for this show.
That's
the
right.
The possibilities were endless.
They were.
And unfortunately, you only got to explore those possibilities for, 20-some episodes?
20.
20? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they gave it a shot.
And I did read an interesting thing about that. So it was on against 60 Minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And looked like it was going to get renewed. Like it was doing well enough against 60 Minutes for that. And then 60 Minutes had some sort of, crisis or scandal or something, and NBC thought they could put a new show up against it.
Yeah.
And so they canceled Voyagers and put up some show that didn't last.
Yeah, as usual. Anytime somebody tries to compete with 60 Minutes as a news magazine, it usually fails.
Yeah.
That kind of runs counter to the whole theory of television programming.
Right.
To provide alternatives for things.
Yeah.
That didn't seem like a good idea in retrospect, but I don't think it seemed like a good idea at the time either. I don't remember a big furor over Voyagers being canceled, but it didn't seem like 60 Minutes is vulnerable. Of course, it's easy to say that, that 32 years later or whatever, it's still around, but yeah, not a good idea. And 60 Minutes seems to have some kind of crisis or scandal every 4 years or so. I think it's a cycle.
Right. Yeah.
It survives.
Maybe the programming people at the time thought early Sunday night is the only time people will watch hard news journalism.
Maybe.
Or a news magazine.
Well, and there's a dichotomy there because it seemed like Sunday 7 o'clock, I think of 60 Minutes and the Family Hour, which that is a notion that seems very quaint.
Right.
Seems about as quaint as an egg cream or something at
Yeah.
this point. Right, but Voyagers is an example of filling that 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock hour with family programming.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what NBC was doing, and ABC put like Disney movies and stuff in that time slot
right.
for years, and CBS was sort of unique in that hard news thing with 60 Minutes. But let's be fair though, Voyagers, I don't think it was a real blockbuster anyways.
Right.
If it was a huge show, they would have found a way to move it around and put it somewhere else, I think.
Well, it was on NBC, so it wasn't a huge blockbuster.
Everything's relative, but yes,
Yeah.
point taken.
I remember watching it when it was on, and I'm trying to figure out how that was happening because, well, we had 2 TVs in our house. One in the living room and one in our parents' bedroom. Mm-hmm. My dad was definitely a big 60 Minutes watcher, but I don't think we were watching this in the bed. I don't know. It just surprised me that seeing that they were up against each other. Like, I assumed it was a weekday show.
Yeah. I didn't watch it that much as a kid. I sort of remember being aware of it, but I seem to remember watching it, like, on vacation, other places. I don't think it was something I was really that into, but I do remember being aware of it. And my theory that I think about now is that NBC promoted a lot during those sitcoms that I was watching, like, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking like 1982 here, so
right.
Maybe Different Strokes or Facts of Life or stuff that I was watching, or daytime television game shows or whatever. Then maybe they were advertising a lot of, you know, coming up. And to be honest, what I remember watching on Sundays kind of would be more like football or something like that. I mean, I remember maybe especially a little bit later, but you know, the sort of like late football games and on CBS or NBC, and
right.
NBC having a 4:00, you know, AFC West matchup or something like that. Dick Enberg, Merlin Olsen, and the peak for that for me may have been a year or two after this, but still, that's more what I remember. So revisiting Voyagers, I hadn't seen this show in a long time, and I don't really have a strong sense of watching it when it was on either.
I'm trying to figure out what grade it would have been in, but I feel like I remember talking to like other kids about it and stuff. It was enough of an exciting thing, and it definitely, like, some of the basic visual iconography of it stuck with me, like Meeno's red and white striped shirt, and Jon-Erik Hexum's Phineas Bogg, his sort of like Han Solo costume, and then their little time travel device, the Omni.
Yeah, the Omni.
It's basically, it's kind of like a fancy compass. It's a pretty cool little object in terms of prop.
Yeah, I guess they never merchandised the show, or we would have had a toy Omni in stores for Christmas in 1982 or 83, you know, to play with. It would light up with the red light, green light.
Right.
I seem to remember Meeno from other shows as much as Voyagers.
Yeah.
Like, I get the feeling like even back then, like, I knew of Meeno being in other stuff, and then he was already, like, around by that point. So it's like, oh, hey, Meeno Peluce got a show.
Yeah, I don't think I knew his name, but I knew it's that kid.
Yeah.
From
he shows up everywhere.
Bad News Bears or whatever.
Yeah, so I think I know Meeno more than Voyagers, I guess.
Yeah.
And, you know, Jon-Erik Hexum, we talked about, this was kind of his main deal, this show. But
yeah. I did, to go back to the morbid subject of his death briefly. Apparently a lot of his organs got donated to people, including his heart.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, that was pretty, I'm not sure what adjective to use there, but interesting to see, and you know, that he was somehow heroic in his death, in a way.
Some good came out of a bad situation.
Yeah, and clearly he was young and healthy, so
yeah.
I could see that happening. Anyway, we'll talk about the basic premise of the show, which is his character, Phineas Bogg, is a Voyager, and they travel through history to set it on the right course, I think is what they say. And so he has this device, the Omni. They land in a time period, and something's wrong. It'll give them a red light, and then once they fix it, they get a green light. It is apparently only set to go to 1970, which comes up in the first episode. And the setup there, which is the whole setup of the show, is that this kid Jeffrey that Meeno plays, his parents have died. He's living with an aunt and uncle who don't want him.
In the present.
In the present, 1982. Mm-hmm. And in a high-rise in Manhattan. And one night, the aunt and uncle are arguing about him and how he's spoiling their life and they can't take a vacation. Phineas Bogg crashes through Meeno's window. And he's confused. He doesn't know where he is at first. And then Meeno's dog, I think his name is Ralph, grabs a book that Phineas Bogg has. And Phineas and the dog are fighting over it, and Meeno gets involved. And he and Phineas, they fall out the window, and then they land in the past. And it turns out then...
I guess it's better than landing on the pavement.
Yeah. The book was his Voyager guidebook. And without it, he's lost because he was busy paying attention to girls or women when he was in Voyager training, and he doesn't know anything about history. Luckily, Jeffrey's dad was a history professor, so he knows all sorts of stuff. And they become, at first, reluctant, but then not reluctant partners
And they have Robert Culp along to help them learn how to use the Omni even without the instructions.
No.
Right. Oh, that's a different. Sorry. Different show. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yelling at them.
But not a dissimilar setup of that part of it.
Right. That's right. The Greatest American Hero. They didn't have instructions for the suit.
Yes, they lost the manual.
Yeah.
For the suit. Yes. So.
And because the thing, it only went to 1982 because it was glitching while in automatic mode. So. He can't even get him home because it won't go to 1982.
I'm glad you're explaining some of this because, they give a bare minimum of details at the beginning of each show. So you naturally wonder why this kid is walking around, is going around with this guy through time, like where his parents are and all this. And so I read a little bit of it, but people are going to ask if we don't address this, Mike. What happened to the dog?
The dog is still.
The dog is still in 1982.
1982, reading the guidebook. I don't know what, the aunt and uncle somehow didn't hear this. But I assume they're going to walk in the room and
I hope
be
so.
like, did you push
Yeah.
push Jeffrey out the window?
Yeah, I got a
Thank
bad
you,
feeling.
Ralph. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, he'll treat the dog like a king, actually.
Right, yeah.
The dog will live better than any dog has ever lived. I was worried that they were probably inattentive pet owners as well as inattentive,
Right. Then he jumped out the window.
guardians of this kid, so yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I worried that they would just neglect the dog, but
Right.
okay, you've reassured me and animal lovers listening, so.
But then I assume also the show had at least an element underneath it of sort of like the Gilligan's Island thing.
Trying to...
Like eventually, getting him home. But then, it never happens because the show would be done.
Yeah, I mean, what is there for him at home, though? I mean...
Nothing. Is
Now, this episode that we're going to talk about, Jeffrey, he gets emotional. He clearly has a strong attachment to his parents.
Yeah.
But the parents are not there anymore.
Right.
So I wonder, I mean, does he express like a desire to go? I mean, I see what you're saying, that's the thing that they should do.
Right.
But I wonder if he really isn't better off like traveling around the world in time.
Yeah, maybe not. And reading some of the episode summaries, I guess there's one where Phineas gets put on trial for dragging him around. Although part of it is a setup by some rogue Voyager. Drake.
His nemesis.
Yeah. And...
Does he look just like Phineas, but he has a beard?
I hope so.
No, I don't think he does.
No.
But, yeah.
But I think in the course of that trial, they find out that Jeffrey was destined to become a Voyager. So maybe they just eliminate that idea of him going home by that.
I see.
With that.
So they waited conveniently until his parents were out of the picture, and then they set
Well,
up for this happenstance, quote unquote.
I mean, based on what happens in general in the show, it seems like they have a history is destiny kind of, like it was always going to happen.
Yeah.
His parents were always going to die, and
right.
All of that.
Yeah, and the things they are doing are trying to preserve what's meant to be.
Right.
And that's another thing is I guess they show the connections of how, what ramifications will happen. They sort of show you alternate history, like what if kind of things, like, oh, if we don't do this, then this happens, and that's not good, so then we have to go fix this.
Right. Never clear why things have gotten askew, though.
Yeah, what's going on to cause
I guess it was time travel, so maybe the idea is that they always helped move those things along. But those are the things that were supposed to happen.
I see. Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they get too much into the woods as far as like the mechanics of time travel and some of the quantum physics of this.
Red light, green light.
Yeah.
That's
I
all
just
you
hope
need to know.
that somehow the answer to all this and why things happen, the ripple and fabrics of time, I just hope it involves dinosaurs somehow, and I'll be happy.
I don't know if they ever deal with dinosaurs.
Maybe they would have in a second season.
Yeah. It's a different time with, special effects and things, so...
Yeah, dinosaurs weren't quite the craze they would become a little bit later with before time.
And it seems like, I don't know, this is just a theory, that that the show there is in part to make use of the Universal backlot.
That's a good point, yes. I think you're onto something there. I think you're definitely onto something there. And they made use of it in this episode.
Oh, yeah.
Did they not? Yes.
Definitely. And, some of those, whatever places out in the mountains or wherever, they film all the kind of grassy things when you need them in California.
So each episode has like multiple... I mean, that's something
right.
that intrigues me, is that it's wild because they don't just go to one point in time like,
right.
Kirk and Spock and City on the Edge of Forever and like change something and then have to fix it.
Yeah.
They're jumping around and
they
moving
often
around and
have to go in order to fix the thing they need to fix. They have to go to another point in time, and then they usually have to fix something there,
right,
and then go back and fix what they were originally going to fix.
So that's pretty ambitious when you think
it
about
is,
it. And it's kind of cool. You get more than one thing in each episode. I kind of like the variety of it.
Yeah, it's dare I say Seinfeldian.
Well, you said it. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'd
And
like
the
to
complexity
develop
that
it.
everything is intertwined. Mm-hmm. Although, frankly, one of the time things in here really is not that important at all. I mean, it's important to
like
history.
Incidental,
yeah,
it's played for
yeah. And sometimes it seems like they just between the couple episodes that I've seen recently and reading things and hearing references that they return, like they meet people more than once, like in other episodes. Where they, like there's a reference to Lindbergh landing, and then there's another episode where they have to help make sure that happens.
Yeah.
Somehow, I don't know. I hope it doesn't involve them on the airplane, because then that sort of it takes away his accomplishment, really.
True.
Because then he's not flying alone.
Right.
He's flying with a kid.
Right. It makes him a fraud.
Yeah, but I think that's kind of neat, that there's the possibility of returning characters and sort of an interconnectedness and all of that.
Yeah, who knows what would have happened? Maybe this would have been developed.
In the Voyagers cinematic universe.
Yeah. The eventual movie would have been a real blast.
Yeah.
The Voyagers, the motion picture. I mean, it sort of has like semi-cinematic ambition on a television budget. And,
yeah.
Sort of smaller stakes. I mean, one thing I think we can say is it certainly reveals its family hour orientation. I sort of the marketing for it and the action and the like the previews you see, they sort of emphasize more like adventure rather than violence and action.
Right.
So it's more like instead of like, I mean, there might be a dust up every now and then, but instead of Phineas taking out a pistol and shooting people, maybe he has to sock a guy on the jaw, but it's more like jumping off a building and landing in a wagon or something like that. That sort of thing, like sort of a little bit more tamer side. And there's definitely like a family hour sort of element to like the exposition and the gimmick of having the kid to provide the historical exposition.
Right.
And everything is explained very clearly and I don't mean to be totally, snide when I'm saying that. It's well done for what it is, but it's definitely designed to be something that the whole family could watch together, and you can see that they're really appealing towards the younger set.
Right, and it's that I don't know. I'm not going to call that fun idea necessarily, but the idea of the kid is the adult and the adult is the kid. Yeah, kind of, because he isn't educated in what he should be educated in, and he's often distracted, but in a chaste way, acceptable family hour way.
They had a similar dynamic over on 60 Minutes with Morley Safer and Ed Bradley. Ed Bradley was only in his 60s then, of course, and Morley Safer was in his 90s at this time. So it's interesting that NBC essentially aped that dynamic, but maybe that's why it didn't work. But.
Morley Safer was always a kid at heart.
Yeah, but really, I mean, anything compared to the 60 Minutes audience you'd think would be young. So it wasn't. You wouldn't think it would be a difficult target, which I'll have to check. I'm thinking that ABC had some kind of Disney movie or special program or movie, Sunday night movies, I seem to remember. So. Yeah, Voyagers, so 20 episodes, and we picked one of them.
Right. The one we picked was Cleo and the Babe, and when did that?
Yes, I have it as November 14th, 1982.
Okay.
You remember where you were November 14th, 1982? Were you watching this episode?
Probably.
Enjoying the crisp autumn air?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's about all I know.
Yeah. Well...
Thanksgiving was around the corner.
Yeah, exactly.
My brother's birthday was around the corner.
Yeah.
Christmas was around the corner.
Yeah.
Do you think the Sears Wish book would have arrived by then?
Yeah, that's...
Because if it had, I probably was spending a lot of time looking at that.
Yeah, you might have had that... You might have been paging through that while the show was on, even.
Anticipating only a mere, 6 months away, Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. just around the corner.
Just around the corner. Everything was just around the corner.
Yeah, and hoping they'd make an Omni. You're leafing through the Sears wish book in vain, trying to find an Omni that you could ask for Christmas.
6 months away from being 10. Wow. Quite the time.
This is quite a time. This is your regular Daniel Stern setting the picture here. Well, does Voyagers take us back to the 1920s and ancient Egypt as well as it does to 1982? We might have to find that.
Well, ancient Rome.
Yes, ancient Rome.
We never get to Egypt.
Yes, that's right. Well, we should mention that Cleo in the title is not Miss Cleo from the Psychic Network. It's Cleopatra.
Yeah.
And Babe is legendary home run hitter Babe Ruth.
Not the talking pig.
Not the talking pig. No.
Yeah.
That would have been an interesting combination as well.
Or the was it the fish from Pinocchio or the cat?
Oh yeah, I think it was the cat was Cicero. Wait, it was Cicero.
Yeah. I think the fish was Cleo.
Yeah.
And Babe.
Well,
any of those,
the ill-fated 1990s Voyager reboot might have covered some of these. I don't know. I don't think that made it to air, but
yeah. Based on the first episode, it seemed like maybe every episode ended with them landing in the first, kind of like Quantum Leap. But I don't think that's the case because this one didn't. They didn't move to another time at the end of it. So
yeah, like you're saying, like often they would set up the next episode at the end. Right.
But I don't think that's the case.
Yeah.
Maybe just with that first one they did that.
Okay.
Or maybe like if you start the second one, it has no bearing on what happened at the end of the first one.
They just abandoned it.
Yeah, being that kind of show it is, they could shuffle around episode order if they needed to.
Well, that's interesting.
Like if there's not a ton of, there's some continuity, but maybe not.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Quantum Leap because that might be something that people that aren't familiar with the show might think it's sort of.
Yeah.
That might come to mind, like people jumping through time and making things right. And
yeah, it's a little bit like that. Yeah.
That and Sherman and Peabody, I guess, right? In the other direction.
Right. Doctor Who a little bit.
Yeah. Time Tunnel had time travelers.
Yep.
Kind of fixing stuff.
Yep. Timeless.
Yeah.
Legends of Tomorrow. Yeah. Time travel. Star Trek. All sorts of things. So in this case, the Voyagers land in ancient Rome on a very important day.
Yes,
the Ides of March.
The Ides of March, yes.
But they're not there to fix Caesar from getting killed because he's already dead. And I don't know that this is historically accurate because honestly, anything I know about that story is from Shakespeare. We know that's not entirely accurate, but Brutus is riding through the streets proclaiming that they've murdered.
Yeah.
That he's helped murder Caesar.
Yeah, what a blowhard.
Yeah.
Act like you've been there before. Show some class.
Right.
Kill a guy and at least have some dignity about it.
Yeah.
Running around bragging about it.
And they're after Cleopatra. Again, I don't know if she was in town when that happened.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. She was in town for the Ides.
Yeah.
I thought she'd come visit, and wouldn't you know it, she got wrapped up in all this stuff.
She says later she doesn't like Egypt. So, yeah, maybe she got away as much as she can.
Yeah, hey, why not?
And they're at Brutus is like, go get her,
Yeah.
She's connected.
You're either with him or you're against him, I guess.
Right. She's his girlfriend.
Yeah.
Got to get the girlfriend,
Yeah.
And that's when the guys luckily somehow, did they go and find her? I already forgot.
When they first come into,
or they land in her chariot.
They land like in her. I think she's there where they land.
Yeah.
And she's taken aback by.
Right.
Understandably.
Yeah. And she's taken with Mr. Bogg.
Yes, in a suitably family hour chaste way, but
yeah.
Clearly she's impressed by him.
Yeah. In fact, they kiss, and somehow the Omni gets activated while they're kissing.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any symbolism there, but
no.
The Omni does show some activity.
Yeah.
There's some stirrings in the Omni, let's say.
Right, and they end up in New York on May 21st, 1927.
Yes, all three of them.
No, not all three.
Oh, well, that's right, because, yes.
Meeno's not involved in that kiss.
Yeah.
Or Jeffrey, I should say. I just want to call him Meeno.
That's right.
He gets abandoned in ancient Rome.
Yeah.
And so that's when they mentioned Lindbergh, because that's the day Lindbergh landed in Paris. Like somebody, hey, Lindy just landed.
Yeah. People yelling stuff out in the streets as they did back in those days.
Yeah.
That was the main way to transmit news.
Right. Phineas fairly quickly loses Cleopatra in the crowd, and he goes back to get Geoffrey.
Yeah, because it would be very easy, as you can imagine, to lose Cleopatra in 1927 New York.
Well, and then they do a bit with that, right?
Well,
He's like, yeah, she'll be. I think when they come back, so he gets Geoffrey. They come back. Like that whole thing adds up in not much. Like I thought, oh, Geoffrey's going to be. They'll be separated the whole time. Yeah,
and it would be. Yeah, he'd have to agonize, finding him. But that really wasn't a big deal.
No, and they do a little montage, like, well, she can't get too far and dress like she is, and with that haircut, and very quickly she pawns some jewelry, gets a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And basically becomes a flapper.
Yeah, of course. That was the style back then.
Yep.
1927. There was not many options for a woman, and being a flapper was the one that appealed to Cleopatra.
Yeah, and she probably looked around and was like, "Yeah, I like that look."
Mm-hmm.
She was a woman of style.
She was.
And she seemed to pick up on how to do all that a little quicker than Wonder Woman did. Yeah. In her initial.
Well, she enjoys. She's fascinated by the style and how dynamic 1927 New York is. She's in no hurry to return to the past.
That's
Unlike
right.
in some situations where somebody taken years into the future might be thrown by that, she wants to blend right in and has no desire really to return.
That's right. And how could she? Because she very quickly meets an interesting man, Italian himself or Sicilian. One Lucky Luciano. Of all the people in New York, she meets Lucky Luciano.
Well, they were two charismatic individuals.
Yeah.
Very, at the top of their fields.
Yeah. I don't think they covered his affair with Cleopatra on Boardwalk Empire.
Yeah, they didn't?
No.
That's disappointing.
Yeah.
they couldn't fit that in.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Thank goodness we have Voyagers is the show of record for that aspect of history, I guess.
Yeah. So while she's becoming a flapper, Geoffrey and Phineas wander all of the streets of New York and end up in the Bronx. And Geoffrey's like, oh, we're going to go get a hot dog at Yankee Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
But when they get there, there's no Yankee Stadium.
It's a real bummer.
It is.
And
how could there not be Yankee? They're still playing at the Polo Grounds.
Yeah, and they talked to a sassy news vendor, I guess, right? Who says because the Yankees are terrible,
right?
It's like they need to win a lot more games before anybody would give them a whole stadium.
Yeah.
And he doesn't. He barely remembers Babe Ruth,
right?
Because Babe Ruth is became like he stayed a pitcher and never went to the Yankees, never became a superstar Hall of Famer. And so Babe Ruth is out of the league at this point. Right.
He's in vaudeville.
Yeah.
I wanted to see that.
So did I. One of the big failings of this episode is not showing that.
He's doing Who's on First, and he just he just clobbers the other guy. It's very short.
Just hits him over there with the baseball
bat.
Instead of Instead of biting his glove or something like that.
Yeah, it's more a Three Stooges version of.
It's a little more knockabout. Well, so this is a very different history, and as a Pittsburgh Pirates fan, I have to wonder, maybe we would have been better off with Babe Ruth playing the sticks for years, and the Yankees stinking, and the Yankee Stadium never being built. I'm just saying, let's consider that.
But that the 1927 team. Is like the legendary team.
Yeah, like Murderers Row.
So if they had all of those players except Babe Ruth, would they stink? Or did they never? Did some not having Babe Ruth mean they didn't get Lou Gehrig and?
Yeah, I mean you could argue that their success. I mean, Yankee Stadium was known as the house that Ruth built.
Right.
So they got a big stadium where they could pack tens of thousands of people in there, and then they could just go out and buy whoever they wanted and.
Right.
It's pretty much still the way it is, actually.
Yeah.
But no, you make a good point though. Is one player that critical to baseball history that the Yankees would just be terrible forever? Yeah. Like they wouldn't have been like the Cubs, not winning a World Series for 80 years. Any team in New York you'd think eventually would have turned it around.
Right. And the argument Phineas Bogg tries to make is it doesn't really matter. It's not that important when an historical figure is running around
Yeah, I was disappointed in him.
New York.
He keeps, it's just baseball. So what?
Right.
It's like, hey, I like baseball.
Yeah.
Give me a break, buddy. NBC should have known better. NBC had the game of the week back then. They were a baseball network, and they're letting this kind of filth get on their airwaves. Some hero figure demeaning baseball. Although he does come around eventually.
He does, yeah.
But yes. Well, see, Babe Ruth didn't just transform the Yankees, though, but he transformed baseball and changed the game with his home run hitting and was a huge attraction. So he was pivotal to baseball, not just the team. You know,
what would have the Baby Ruth candy bar been called?
I guess the Grover Cleveland's daughter. They would just call it. They wouldn't even have any ambiguity. It would just be Grover Cleveland's daughter.
Is that what Baby Ruth is named?
Well, there's the story that I guess there's two different stories about it. It's either named after or it's named after supposedly Grover Cleveland's daughter or something like that. So that would be the alternate name of the candy bar. I guess. You get your Mounds, your Grover Cleveland's daughter, and your Snickers for Halloween each year. But that's a good question, though.
Right.
What would have happened to the candy bar? That maybe not just a name change. Maybe it would have had, I don't know, less nougat and more. I don't know.
And what would have happened to George Costanza?
Oh,
where would he have worked?
Yeah, where would he have worked?
In between long stretches of unemployment and Kruger Industries.
Yeah. Maybe it would have been a traveling secretary for, I don't know, the New York Generals or something like that. That seemed like that would might have been appropriate. See, this isn't so bad the way things are working out without Babe Ruth being the Yankees. I'm starting to resent Meeno Peluce for opening up his big mouth.
So he does convince. This is the first time he convinces him. He convinces him, we should go fix this. Mm-hmm. We need to go back to Boston in 1919. Something goes wacky with the Omni, and they end up in England in 1699. A gentleman is wandering a grove of apple trees, trying to figure out something, and they figure out, well, he's Isaac Newton, and he's working. This is what's confusing. I thought he said, I'm working on a theory about gravity.
Oh, I don't think he actually used the word gravity.
Okay.
I think he was trying to something about the nature of. Yeah, I think he talked around it. Actually.
Okay, good. Because later
that would have been a little. Yeah.
But he's walking in the sun. He just can't. He can't find what he needs, and they figure out. Convince him that it's a little hot and he needs to go sit in the shade under an apple tree.
Yeah. And then they just let nature take its course.
Gravity happens.
Yeah.
And this is the part of this seems really not connected to anything.
Yeah, it's distinct from the rest of the plot.
But Jeffrey is able to use it, to convince Phineas that even something small can be important.
Yeah.
Like an apple. Mm-hmm. That was important. And change the course of human history there.
Right.
So they do go to Boston and find the Red Sox, and I thought it was interesting. They at least kind of referenced the Babe Ruth was a little unsavory in his private life.
Yes, there are some allusions to his partying, I guess, his wild ways off the field. Yeah,
and his attitude is like, well, I'm the only good pitcher you have, so you're not going to get rid of me or suspend me or anything.
Yeah, he's kind of untouchable because that's how they set up for Phineas to do like a little pitching tryout.
Yeah.
It's a little.
That whole plan makes no sense.
Yeah, the idea that there's the conceit that they need to take Babe down a peg by showing that someone can actually pitch better than him.
Right.
Because he needs to become an outfielder, like a full-time outfielder.
Yeah.
And the only reason he's gonna,
I mean, that's kind of some of that made sense. Like I thought, at first I thought it was like they'll be a better pitcher, and then the Red Sox will trade him because they don't need him.
Right.
because they did trade him, right?
Yes, after that season.
And so Jeffrey, being a modern kid and a student of baseball, and teaches pretty quickly Phineas how to do all this modern pitching.
Yeah, Meeno was a real superstar because later he says something like he hit cleanup on his team too. So
that's right.
Not only was he a pitching expert,
yeah,
he was a slugger as well.
Well,
he was like the Babe Ruth of his day. Apparently.
Yeah, all those years on the Bad News Bears.
Yeah,
the TV show, not the movie, but yeah.
Yeah.
He probably was.
Yeah, he may have been.
He seems a little small for a cleanup.
He does.
But
maybe he was playing with like 5-year-olds or something.
And he was using his brain too. Oh yeah, I like your. So the 12-year-old and a team of 5-year-olds.
Yeah. Oh, I hit cleanup. I was dominant. They couldn't get me out. Conveniently, not mentioning the fact that falsified his birth certificate to play in the Pee Wee League or something like that.
Yeah.
But yes, he shows Phineas how to throw like trick pitches because they haven't even been invented yet.
That's right.
So he's having him throw like screwballs and sliders and knuckleballs and all this and split-fingered fat. So
what is a screwball? I've never understood what a.
It breaks like instead of a curveball, it breaks like the opposite direction. So it would the curve on it would be. I'm trying to think of a succinct way to say
up
this.
Or down.
A curveball would like break away, and a screwball would have movement going the other direction.
Oh, like towards
like
the
a reverse curveball, essentially.
Yeah.
Yes.
I see. Okay, and that's different than a changeup.
Changeup
changes
is
speed.
like off speed. I mean, all the pitches can have like movement on it, but a changeup would just be like an off speed pitch.
Right.
Like a pure changeup. And a screwball would have like more movement on it in theory.
Okay.
So.
Like I know in a cartoon, like Bugs Bunny, a screwball goes. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a screwball is like the umpire who is a screwball or something
right.
like, and actually has a screw through his head when Bugs Bunny looks at him or something like that.
That's right. Yeah.
So the idea is that Phineas will show his stuff and be evidently forgetting the baseball truism that you can never have enough pitching.
Right.
As soon as he shows up, the whole team, all of a sudden he's like the darling and the pitcher, and it kind of backfires though because Babe becomes so disillusioned he just doesn't want to play.
Right. So then, this is why it just really doesn't hold together. Jeffrey convinces him that he needs to be a hitter, partly because he'll get to play every day.
Yeah.
So they clearly do have enough pitching.
Well, that's what happened in real life. I think it was Babe Ruth wanted to play every day, so they converted him into like an outfielder.
But why did they trade him?
That would be a whole episode for a whole other show. That's what Boston Red Sox fans were lamenting for about years and years and decades though, because it seemed like a dumb thing to do.
Because Jeffrey's like, if you can show that you can hit this new pitcher who nobody else can hit at all, then you'll get to be outfielder, and he does. He just like hits a bunch of home runs.
The idea is that he's so good that he becomes tradable and goes to the Yankees, and that's why in Yankees and baseball. Whereas if he had stayed in Boston, who knows what would have happened. But there's a lot of controversy over that. But the legend is, the story is that the Boston owner needed to finance a play, like a musical, and he needed money, so he dumped some of his best players. And actually, the guy Edward Barrow, who's seen as the Red Sox manager in this, he went into the Yankees organization and was instrumental in building that Yankees.
Okay.
He knew how good Babe Ruth was, and also what a handful he was, as we see here. So it's kind of all connected, and that was the whole curse of the Bambino thing. The lore in Boston for years was that by selling they didn't win a World Series for years because they dumped Babe Ruth, and that screwed the franchise because Babe Ruth put a curse on them.
Isn't there something about a piano too?
A piano?
Wasn't there? Or is that the Cubs?
I'm not sure which one you're talking
like
about.
A piano.
Like a piano fell on somebody, or
a piano in the river or something.
A piano in the river. Is this a Harold Lloyd movie or a baseball thing?
That's right. Harold Lloyd's The Piano in the River.
I can't speak
Babe
to
Ruth
that
was a
right
big
now.
fan of that movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He missed a game because of that.
Yes.
Yeah. He just sat in the theater all day watching the piano in the river.
He missed the big game.
Yeah.
It wasn't because he had, he'd been out too long and was hungover.
Right.
It's because he was sitting in a Nickelodeon watching Harold Lloyd movies all day.
That's just not cinematic, so they couldn't use it in any of his biopics.
Yes.
Like, you can't show someone watching a movie in a movie.
No, it's not. It just doesn't fly.
Right. Because then somebody's watching a movie, watching someone watch a movie. That's just confusing.
That's pretty deep.
Yeah.
That's pretty deep. That's more confusing than time travel.
Right.
I could follow this whole time travel stuff, but now my head's spinning. So, yeah.
Okay, so all this works anyway, or that Babe starts hitting, and
he gets his mojo back.
Yeah, but then Phineas and Jeffrey immediately leave.
Yeah.
So what's Boston's solution to that?
To Phineas leaving?
Yeah. We had a great pitcher.
Yeah.
No, Babe's not pitching now. What?
Yeah. Seems like more likely that Ed Barrow would have been gone into a psychiatric ward.
Yeah.
Because he's always ranting and raving about that pitcher he found, and there's no trace of any Phineas Bogg in the Texas leagues. They said it came from the Bush leagues, but
right. He's always telling pitchers you lift your leg up when it looks like you're going to fall over, but you're not. It does something. I don't know.
And actually, there's some limited baseball scenes. They're pretty good. I mean, the early scenes are sort of like spring training, like training camp, out in the middle of nobody. And then when they go to quote a real game, it's a little mixture of. You don't see a lot of crowd shots. Let's just say that.
Right.
But you do get the announcer in the booth and, oh boy, the Babe is coming up this time, and he's really going to give it a smackaroo, and that sort of thing. So you get a little bit of baseball action in this.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so they go back to 1927, clearly later in the season. It's not May. It's later in the year.
Yeah, sorry, I'm jumping around here.
Near the end of the season. The Yankees have won the pennant. Babe Ruth has 59 home runs. Mm-hmm. He just needs to hit the one to set his record.
Yes, his 60th.
So I'm sure we could, if we wanted to, look up the exact date that's supposed to be. But suffice it to say, it's later in the season.
Yeah.
If he had 60 home runs in May, that would be pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, so in 1920, after he was traded, he broke the world's. He did break the single season record, and then he broke his own record a couple more times.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, it was it went astronomically up to him breaking the record, and then when he first shattered it, and then he just kind of went up by steps, and he did 50 some, and then 60. But 60 was a nice round number.
Yeah.
So I guess that was important in history to get number 60.
Yeah, and that's the one that stood until Maris, right, in 61.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if Babe Ruth hadn't hit his 60th home run for that, Billy Crystal would have had to make a movie called 60 with an asterisk, and all of history would have changed as a result of that. So thank goodness Meeno fixed that too.
Yeah.
And when Babe sees them again, he doesn't necessarily. He sort of says that Meeno reminds him of a kid.
Right. Yeah.
I guess it makes sense because he would think Meeno would be 6 years older and when.
Yeah, but he's really not at all.
Yeah. Maybe that's why he doesn't say, "Hey, you're the kid that taught me how to hit home runs."
Yeah, for Meeno, it's the day before.
Yeah.
When he did that.
Yeah.
But we actually skipped where the stories actually come together. When they come back, the Omni's still red because Cleopatra's still there. And I believe at the same newspaper stand, they see a picture of her out on the town with Lucky.
Yeah.
And they realize,
headlines. Well,
that's where she is. So they track them down at a speakeasy, manage to get in the speakeasy. Even a kid gets in the speakeasy. Because as Phineas points out, and he's right, it's prohibition. So
there shouldn't be anything going on anyway.
A kid can come in if he wants.
Yeah, why not?
If it's illegal for everyone, what's another thing? Yeah. That seemed to be his point of view, which is accurate.
There's some logic to that. Yeah.
It's ethically you might still question, but it's not like he drinks it all or anything.
Yeah. Although he doesn't necessarily want him hanging around in there. He says you don't need to be staying around here.
It's gonna get rough.
Yeah, he doesn't want him to. Yeah, I guess it's more for the fighting aspect of it. But but it's not like he's just gonna plunk him down there and let him have sarsaparilla or whatever all day while the rest of them are fixing history. Because there's all kinds of other vices that could go on in the speakeasy too.
That's right. And who else is in the speakeasy?
Well, Cleopatra's in the speakeasy.
Yeah. Lucky Luciano.
Yeah.
Somebody else.
Oh well, the Whammer. I'm thinking of the Natural.
The Sultan of Swat himself, the Babe.
Yeah, the Sultan of Swat.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Babe is, the Babe. We know the Babe likes speakeasies. He likes music.
Yeah.
He likes piano. We know that. He likes Harold Lloyd.
Yeah.
He likes women. So why wouldn't he be hanging out in a speakeasy?
Right, and
trying to make time with. Actually, he's sort of entrapped into this situation, right? Because
Lucky has a bet against him hitting that 60th home run.
not a good bet by Lucky.
No.
And
But to cover his bet, he's going to have Cleopatra seduce Babe Ruth, and they're going to kidnap him
yeah,
for the rest of the season, I guess.
yeah. And if worse come to worse, they'll just put him in a movie theater.
Yeah.
Just leave him there, and then he'll never want to come out.
That's right.
That's the backup plan.
There's a new Harold Lloyd playing.
Yeah,
I
just
twitch.
leave him in there.
Yeah. If we need more, I know people. I can get every reel of Harold Lloyd. I even outtakes. I have the outtakes. Harold Lloyd himself will come.
Yeah.
Don't worry, it's a foolproof plan.
Yeah, Cleopatra trying to seduce Babe Ruth. Is,
Yeah.
where's that guy that hangs off the clock? I want to see that guy.
Right. Yeah.
So that's yes.
Now,
that's
the bet's smart in the sense that if you do win, then you win a lot of money, probably, right?
Yeah,
It'd
I
be
mean,
like betting against Seabiscuit or
you'd
something.
think you would get pretty good odds, but you'd also
Yeah.
think that he would be controlling like the action on it. You wouldn't think
Right.
Lucky Luciano would go to some bookie in the corner and put down 3 large big.
Yeah.
You'd think he'd be the guy taking the action, not the guy making the action.
Oh, right.
I mean, who's he going? Is he going to like Al Capone and placing a bet or something?
Yeah,
higher
or
than
the
Arnold Rothstein or
that's
somebody?
the guy I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Or was he busy? Because this was after the White Sox scandal,
Yeah,
so he might have
yeah.
been incarcerated or something. But,
Well, I guess the point is that Lucky's got a lot of money invested in seeing that the Babe,
Yeah.
the Whammer, whatever you want to call him,
right. Yeah.
doesn't hit his 60th home run.
And if you're going to use a woman to help kidnap someone, Cleopatra's probably a good bet.
Yeah.
That's probably smart.
If Clara Bow's not available,
Right.
why not Cleopatra, right?
Right. If Harold Lloyd dressed as a woman isn't available.
Not on such short notice.
Yeah.
They had to make do with
And,
what they had in the East
and
Coast.
Cleopatra has an agenda too. If that happens, then Lucky's going to help her meet Emperor Calvin Coolidge.
Oh, that's right, yes. Yes, she's very excited to meet Emperor Calvin Coolidge, which there's so many things wrong about that sentence.
Yeah. Anyway, the Voyagers help Babe escape, and and finally, part of helping Cleopatra get on their side is telling her that he's going to lose the election. Coolidge is going to lose the election.
She doesn't want any part of him.
Or no.
She doesn't want to be on the losing side. Can't blame her.
Yeah. She might not know what an election is, but
No. She senses that she doesn't want any part of it.
yeah. They rescue the Babe.
Yeah, there's a little car chase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tommy guns, maybe.
Yeah. There's a little bit of adventure here.
Yeah.
I should say, this episode moves around pretty quickly. I mean,
Yeah.
they're jumping from time to time. You can see it's a pretty fast-paced show.
Yeah. So sometimes when they jump from time to time, they just cut to the new time, and sometimes they have like a standard stock visual that they use where they're like flying through space and time, and there's
Yeah.
sort of like a like a triangular sort of Stargate from 2001
Yes.
kind of business going on.
As any time travel show should have.
Yeah, you gotta have some.
At least one scene with the guys spinning around. And,
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
And it does always seem to literally drop them into the new time.
Yeah.
Like that's like a running gag, and
Yeah, they don't have...
Phineas is always hoping for like a bale of hay or
Right.
a stack of hay because it's soft. Doesn't always happen though.
no, it doesn't.
In fact, I think when they came back to New York, they landed in like a hansom cab.
Yeah, they've had worse landings, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, they restore history, I guess, and
The
they
Babe
take
hits-
Cleopatra. Yeah, the Babe hits his 60th home run.
Yeah, and he has a tender moment with Jeffrey, like telling him how a boy who looked just like him inspired him before, and Jeffrey got to be the bat boy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
got his own little Yankees uniform.
Yeah. Yeah, and then they take Cleopatra home, and or back to Rome. I don't know why they didn't just take her home,
Yeah, well, she must have...
but they help her escape anyway.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we forgot to we should talk about that. A couple things. I actually took notes here.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Part of how in the Speakeasy that they get the babe's attention is that Phineas, on Jeffrey's advice, shoves a grapefruit in Cleopatra's face. It worked in white heat.
Yeah.
So, and the other was that we talked. You mentioned it briefly, but Jeffrey does have that like emotional moment about his remembering going to the baseball games with his dad, and I think that's after they come back and Yankee Stadium is there, but they're still.
I think you're right. Yeah,
he gets a little worked up.
He remembers it was something he did. It's a memory he shares with his father, so it's more than just baseball.
Yeah, it's baseball.
It's connection to his family.
It's hot dogs with the works, which apparently is just mustard and relish.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into a hot dog debate on this podcast. I don't want to.
I like a hot dog with mustard and relish, but that doesn't sound like the works to me. Like the works sounds like something I wouldn't want because it had too much stuff.
Yeah.
Like onions, I don't know, another hot dog,
It's
a hamburger and eggs and.
What?
I don't know.
Yeah, I see what you mean. But, I don't know if I'd want that either.
Yeah, mushrooms. I don't know.
Yeah.
The last thing for my notes, I believe Babe Ruth says this about Cleopatra: the dame's a nickel short.
The dame's a nickel short. Yes. Yes. The actress that played Cleopatra, I didn't recognize her from this, but I looked up. She was actually in she made a couple of appearances on Taxi.
Ah.
And she'd been around a while. I mean, she plays Cleopatra kind of in an interesting way. I wasn't terribly. She wasn't to me like the ideal Cleopatra.
No.
There's something very offbeat about her.
Yeah.
But I don't know what you think about Cleo. And Lucky Luciano was very like stereotypical.
Yeah.
This, that, those.
Right.
Yeah.
He was a mug.
Yeah.
She seemed maybe like she was good at playing the 1920s part and not the Cleopatra part.
Yeah, I think she was going for some kind of like, the regal part of it. I don't know if I really bought that.
Right, or maybe she was trying to play Liz Taylor or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. And the Babe, there's a character actor playing the Babe Ruth. He was amiable. It's tough to play Babe Ruth.
Yeah, he seemed fine, and he definitely he's a recognizable guy from that period. He was fine, and I liked that guy playing the manager.
Yeah.
He's a good, typical TV movie baseball manager.
And the guy playing Isaac Newton sounded just like him. He was dead on.
He did.
Dead on. I didn't have any problems with
especially
him.
The way he played getting hit in the head with an apple.
Oh, yeah, brilliant. Brilliant.
A one-take wonder, that guy.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention a few people in the guest stars. Nobody really stood out that much one way or another, I guess.
No, the DVD said promises exciting guest stars.
Yeah, we watched this through the magic of DVD.
Yeah.
The complete series is out on DVD.
And pretty reasonably priced at this point, or at least it was when I got it. Popping up throughout their adventures are such timeless guest stars as Ed Begley Jr.,
Ooh.
Miguel Sandoval, Shannon Doherty,
okay.
Mako, and more.
Okay. Let's play that great parlor game of what historical figure do you think Shannon Doherty is? Okay, this is young Shannon Doherty, like just before Our House Shannon Doherty, I guess?
Yeah, she might even be like around the same age as
Meeno. So you think she's a love interest for Meeno Peluce?
It could be. This is without looking at what other episodes are about.
Yeah. And we can solve this in the show notes later, maybe, if we don't.
Helen Keller might be a possibility.
That's good. Let's go with that. That's excellent.
Trying to think of a few others like historical 12-year-old girls.
Anne Frank.
It seems a little dark, but
right. Yeah, I don't know.
She could be like a not historical figure, just someone in the encounter in history.
Yeah, who sort of personalizes the time and tells them what it's really like.
Maybe the daughter of a Southern slave owner.
The daughter. Yeah, it could be.
I mean, go dark. They definitely cover that issue.
Yeah.
And that's the other. I don't know how often they address this horrible thing is supposed to happen, so we can't change that.
Right, like the acceptance of bad things happening.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if they get into that.
Yeah, or like that there's such like he's such a student of history through his dad. Maybe that's just his point of view.
Yeah.
Well, these things had to happen so other good things could happen, or
it would be interesting. Now, granted, it's a 7 o'clock show, as we keep mentioning. So I keep mentioning. It would be kind of interesting if they got into some debate over, hey, should we kill Hitler while we're here?
I don't even know if they go
sort of
into World War II. They definitely go into World War I. Like the first episode includes World War I.
Oh, okay.
And like the Red Baron and some things.
Wow.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to bring up that I found sort of interesting is what do you think of Meeno is Meeno?
Yeah.
What do you think about Jon-Erik Hexum? I think there's an interesting dynamic between the two leads, and I kind of like Jon-Erik Hexum.
I do.
You sort of expect him to be. I sort of expect him to be kind of like low substance, and like I said, he died young, and I was surprised how young he was. And it just seems like, now I guess it's more commonplace that you have really young guys playing these leading roles, but he was like in his early 20s, maybe like 24 or something at most. He has a surprising amount of gravitas. I think for a guy that young. Yeah.
I kind of like the outfit. He's a little bit Han Solo-y. Mm-hmm. He's always calling Meeno kid, which, he is a kid, but like you don't go around calling your son kid.
No. Yeah, no, you don't.
He's a little bit roguish, but like when he needs to be sympathetic to when Meeno's crying and everything, he's there and actually gives him some good advice that it's like Meeno's trying to be all like men aren't supposed to cry and everything, and he does a good job of just saying, well, Napoleon cried at Waterloo and and something, and he makes some joke too that I like it might be intentionally, but he like gets somebody wrong.
Oh yeah, and then
it's like
Meeno,
Washington at
Bunker Hill or
Eisenhower at Bunker Hill. Yeah.
And Meeno's like, "What? You got me."
Yeah.
He snaps Meeno out of his funk with that singer.
But I was thinking about that, like it seems like that if he hadn't died, that there was a potential for him to do a lot more.
Yeah.
Because he's a good-looking dude. There's no question about that. And even though,
no, he is
clearly.
And
he's got some charisma, and and considering this is like one of his only acting gigs, I think it might be his first.
Yeah.
Maybe some commercials or something, but
yeah, it would have been. As the show developed, he probably could have done more of even at that young an age, to be sort of like the surrogate father, even. Yeah. I guess it's kind of like a big brother kind of thing, really. Yeah. But yeah, I was pretty impressed with him. He's not necessarily Harrison Ford at this point. But like you said, he's real young. You wouldn't expect him to be Tom Selleck right away. No. But you can see he had some potential, and why they'd give him the thing, or why they give him the gig. And yeah, it's definitely a shame that he died so young. But I was pretty impressed with him, and I could see why he'd be popular with the ladies, and it just seems like this show had a lot of elements that would have connected with people, but I guess maybe it didn't quite connect the way they hoped it would. Yeah. Well, and you said Meeno was Meeno, but I'm impressed with him as a kid actor too. Like he has a little bit of swagger, but he can do the crying thing pretty well. Yeah. And especially in the pilot, there was more of that, and I think it came across a little better than here, where it's like a 2-minute scene and kind of comes out of nowhere. But I liked that. I thought that was real, that they hadn't dropped that element by episode 6. Yeah. That right. He still is grieving, and that. I find him very unaffected. And you can see why he was in like hundreds of different TV shows, because he just pops on the screen, and you can see he's got his child charisma, like you said. Yeah. Even though at the time I may have been annoyed by seeing him show up everywhere, but yeah. Can I guess at your favorite part of the show? Oh, yes, you can. But just you asking that question leads me to think that you know exactly what it is. During the regular feature? Yes, during the closing credits, Meeno in voiceover says, "If you'd like to learn more about, in this case, Cleopatra and Babe Ruth and Isaac Newton, go to your local library." You nailed it, buddy. Yep. You know me all too well. When I heard that, I was as excited as Babe Ruth seeing a Harold Lloyd movie. I jumped up and you went, Yahoo! And did whatever you do back in the 20s. I recreated that for that. But yes, I love that. So he does that in every episode, huh? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yes, I love stuff like
Yeah.
that.
And we should say that Scholastic was one of the producers of
Oh,
the
really?
show.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
So.
If they would have had a Voyagers paperback tie-in. I would have probably watched this show if they had a Voyagers paperback tie-in that I could have gotten at the book fair.
I'm sure they at least had a feature or two in one of those magazines.
Dynamite. Banana. Yeah, you're probably right. Meeno probably was one of their cover boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is definitely my favorite part of the show.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. Now, other than that, though, I don't know. I mean, I enjoyed this, and I would watch more episodes. It's a fun show, but I'll say I think I would enjoy it a lot more if I did have memories of growing up watching at 7 o'clock, the nostalgia of it, and sort of the recollection of Family Hour and Sundays. I could see myself having a big affection for the show if I had grown up watching it every week. I didn't, so to me it's more okay, this is a good show for the younger, set with a lot of fun elements, but there's other things from that era that I remember a lot more fondly and would probably actually, you know what a show that sort of reminds me, it's like an adventure show of sort of this era-ish, Tales of the Gold Monkey, is one that when I watched that, I said, okay, there's some flaws with this, but to me it brought back Raiders and all that, and I remembered watching it as a kid, and to me I got that kind of rush from watching it and the desire to watch the whole thing. Whereas Voyagers, it's not necessarily something I need to see the whole rest of the series, but I'd certainly be interested in watching more episodes and see how they handle, At the very least, I got to see who Shannon Doherty is, so there's that.
All right.
Well, what say you? I mean, how do you think the show holds up?
I was surprised when I watched the first one how well it held up. That it's pretty well constructed. I mean, calling it Seinfeldian was an exaggeration, but I do like how the things tie together.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's kind of educational, but not in an unentertaining way.
Yeah.
And it's also not it's not like an EI show where the education is more important than the entertainment.
Yeah. I totally didn't remember that multiple storylines and jumping around thing.
Yeah.
I assumed it was kind of like a Quantum Leaper kind of thing where they did one thing and focused on it. So I kind of like that aspect of it.
It makes it a nice complication. In the pilot, they end up in World War I, and there's something where basically aviation hasn't developed where it had to, so they have to jump back to the Wright brothers and solve a problem for them so that they'll do what the Wright brothers need to do, and then they go back to World War I. And that was nice because they met people there. Phineas met a woman, some actress, and then they go back and she doesn't know who he is anymore, which is kind of at least acknowledge what they're doing has effects.
Yeah, that's good. Well, this episode's storyline jumped out at me because I thought Cleopatra, Babe, it sounds like a wild episode, but really, if you go and look at all the the 20 episodes, they all are pretty wild.
Right.
That.
Yeah.
I mean, they sound wow, this combines this and this, and you do get some curiosity, how do they manage to combine those things? So there's definitely that appeal, and like you said, it's available in an affordable DVD. It's 20 episodes, so it's probably worth checking out, and definitely if you remember, watching it growing up, I won't say that it doesn't hold up well.
Yeah, all right. Now it's time for us to travel to another time. The time where the show's done.
It's a sad time.
Yeah.
But go we must.
Unfortunately,
the Omni is red or green.
Despite our attempts in this show at all times to be going back in time, we're human beings, which means we're always traveling forward. Someone told me recently we're never even in the present. Because the present is constantly becoming or we're always in the present. Really, that's what we are, right? We're always in the present,
But what about people that are listening to it after, in the future?
Well, they're time traveling, yeah.
Well,
on the spaceship.
But we're still in the past when they're listening to us, or we're in the present when they're listening to it?
Jeez.
How does the piano in the river fit into this?
I don't know, but when are they going to put that on a Criterion?
The piano in the river?
Yeah. I think it's been lost to the sands of time. All the reels got dumped in the river by Lucky Luciano.
Yeah. Maybe Geraldo Rivera will dig them up eventually.
He's got to get back to that.
To finding stuff?
Yeah, digging up vaults and things.
Yeah, Al Capone didn't work, but Lucky Luciano, he's been trying to pitch somebody on that for 30 years. Lucky Luciano was the guy I really wanted to. I only did Capone because he had more name value.
Yeah. Just get back to that and stop being a blowhard.
Yeah.
You know who else could do it? Hector Ramirez.
Hector Ramirez. We've got an idea now, yep. This episode brought to you by Newton's Own Applesauce, made with the finest gravity. This episode also brought to you by the Voyagers, fixing history 3 events at a time. This episode also brought to you by your local library. Want to learn more about 70s and 80s TV? Find it in a book.
If you want to learn more about Babe Ruth, Cleopatra, or Sir Isaac Newton, take a voyage down to your public library. It's all in books.
Join us next time for another exciting episode of Battle of the Network Shows. Learn more, leave feedback, and suggest future episodes at battleofthenetworkshows.com. Follow us on Twitter at BatNetShows, and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/battleofthenetworkshows.
I remember when they canceled $6 Million Man. Boy, I thought my world was going to end. But then The Fall Guy premiered and my prayers were answered. Sure, it was a different time, slightly different format, but I adjusted. And you know what? I grew a little in the process, too.
I know what you're saying, Mr. Letterman. The Voyagers, it was different. It was really special. I don't think I'll ever watch TV again.
Jimmy, don't ever say that. Not even as a joke.